All right, we are live here. Ronnie, you want to take us away?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. This is the Mindful Player. Ronnie Ortegon here with Adam Rosales and Andy Pierce, my two partners in crime. And we're excited about today because we've got a special guest, guy that I played with years ago, had a big impact in my career. He didn't even know it until I told him, but I always loved watching him play. Jim Aylward, he was the reason why I transferred to Grand Canyon University. We played against each other. And like I said, I was always I loved watching him play because he was hard-nosed, but he would scare me because he was a lot bigger than me. But, you know, once you get to know him, he's just a big teddy bear, man. But we're excited because, you know, he's been doing a lot of things baseball-wise. And I'll let Jim kind of talk about where he played professionally and things like that. So, Jim, glad you're with us, man.
Well, first off, Ron, I appreciate it. You know, I'm honored and actually, you know, very humbled by being here. And I'm glad we reconnected after so many years, and just happy for you and your family, and gotten to know, obviously, Adam and Andy on the past webinars. But yeah, it's been a journey. You know, my career went to Grand Canyon College, and that was an eye opener. I mean, so many great players, as you know, having played there, and then from there, signed by the Phillies, and then got released, got signed by the Angels, Joe Madden and Jeter Hines, and had a successful minor league career. Made it to Double-A, and from there I opted to go overseas. I played a couple years in Taiwan and had a wonderful experience over there, and decided to come back and ended my career up back in Mexico. But you know, the stuff you learn over those years playing, it was, you know, I wish you could go back and say, God, if I learned this when I was 12, 13 years old, I would have made it to the big leagues like Adam did, right? But, you know, it's one of those things where it's a ongoing experience, and you learn, and you got to live with ups and downs and accept that. But yeah, I've had some great coaches along the way, as you know, at Grand Canyon, Gil Stafford, John Pearson, and then Joe Madden was a big influence on me, and had an opportunity to meet Ken Revisa when I was in the minor leagues. But other than that, just now I love coaching. I love, you know, I really focus on the mental side, because you see so many kids today, like I was, you know, you're in the cage all the time. You're trying your mechanics, and you don't really focus on that what's above, right? And I think, Ronnie, when we talked earlier, I asked you the question. I asked parents or players, you know, what percent of this game is mental, and you get various answers. You know, I think you said 90 or 95%. You know, I've been in business for myself for a long time as well, and in sales, and I asked the question, if 90% of this game is mental, how much time do you spend on it? Right? In business, if 90% of your income came from a few sources, how much time would you spend on those sources, if that makes sense? But I don't think we come close to nearly doing enough with the mental side. And I think that's a big part of the game. Obviously, Adam, you're in it right now. And, you know, I remember, I'll tell a little story. One of my kids I coach, he's with the Mariners right now, Sam Haggerty. And just talking about mental side, he was with Cleveland, and I met with him one time after he was in A-ball or Double-A, and he said at the end of the season, the Indians gave him this packet of every at bat he had over the season. And I was like, well, that's cool. We never had that. Whatever. What did it say? And he says, it just talked about launch angle. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And, you know, he's explaining, and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, at the end, I said, well, what do they want you to do with that? And he's like, no, they just gave it to me and wanted me to focus on that launch angle. And I was like, well, how do you teach that? Or what's the mental side? Because if you guys know Sam Haggerty, the guy runs a 6'4", 60. I don't want him hitting the ball in the air. That's me personally. But what I'm trying to say is, you know, the information you give out, I believe sometimes it's just, we say it as coaches, but we don't focus on it or practice it. And, you know, is that really getting through to the player type of thing? So I think what you guys are doing is just unbelievable. I mean, in all aspects of not even, you know, softball, baseball, whatever, just life in general. I mean, you can use this on the everyday level, but just again, happy to be here and you guys are, listening to you guys are just awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm glad you're here. And I think it's good for everybody to know you talk about coaching your daughter's softball team. What else do you're doing your hit lab, your D1 hit lab. Talk about that and what that kind of entails with what you do.
Well, it's in the beginning stages, just, being a full-time dad and working full-time and coaching. It takes a lot of my time, but I've always had this idea of, being able to work with all athletes, with the internet and across the country without really physically having to be there. I've done a ton of lessons in my lifetime. And again, I coached my daughter's softball team, very successful. And a lot of the players go to their own personal hitting coaches, which is great. But, I always ask the question, you go there for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, how much did your time spend on the mind? You work on the physical, you work on, hands inside the ball and whatever it is. But again, so that's always been my passion, I suppose, to be able to reach out. And, when I talk to players, even if I don't know them, I ask simple questions. And it's amazing, you guys know, I'll ask a question to a player that's going to UCLA one time at the golf course. I said, how would you get yourself out? And they looked at me like, what? And I was like, how would you get yourself out? And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're going to UCLA next year. Do you think? And one of my old roommates was Dave Eskers. He's at Stanford now. I go, I guarantee Eskers is going to know how to get you out. You better figure, simple questions like that. And it's amazing what the responses you are. But yeah, I enjoy coaching my daughter's team and the responses you get even from her. It's great, but I'm working on the D1 hit lab again. And, just my kids started school today, back again, sophomore. So I got twins, boy and a girl. So, my time is very valuable to them, but that's where we're heading. And I could, when Ronnie and I hooked up again and see what you're doing and see what you did in the past, it's just been exciting for me.
That's awesome. All right. Very good. Now, you talked about your son playing golf. We talk a lot about, life, but, golf is so mental. What do you think? What's the, how does it parallel from baseball to golf in your kids and seeing it in your kids and the things that they struggle with at times?
Very, very similar. My background and growing up, I had an older brother that obviously I looked up to, and, he pushed me down every chance he could, and put the pressure on me because I always wanted to play. So I was used to that, being in those situations of the pressure, or I wasn't good enough or whatever. But, I kind of take that jokingly with my son when I play him. I rib him pretty good when he's out there, but I think it helps him when he plays in his tournaments. But it's very similar. We talk about one thoughts getting in there. I try to coach him up on, commit to the shot, whatever it is, whatever works for him. My daughter, just a couple of weeks ago, we talked about, she says, yeah, I had about 16 thoughts in my head that last at bat. And I'm like, that's very normal, right? But we now focused our last tournament, which was the biggest tournament of the year last week. And we focused on, what's one thought when you get in the box? I want you to just try to think of that one thought and keep it simple. And she says, I'm going to use the word or zone in. So she zoned in this tournament, man, she was on fire. And yeah, and it was just one of those things. And I think my son, going back to what you were asking, Ronnie, is, committing to what you're doing, because you've done the practice, you've done the work. He's got the swing, he's got the mechanics. It's just a matter, what's in between the ears. And he responds well to the pressure. It's kind of amazing to me at a young age how, I don't know why that is, but he just has it. He comes up like, they treat it like a big tournament. They announce your name, where you're from, and all that. And he just goes up there and hits it down the middle of the fairway, 250 yards. And I ask him, were you nervous? He's like, no, I was just doing my thing. But I think getting back to that is just keeping it simple, keeping us not too many thoughts. Am I going to hit it? Am I going to hit it out of bounds? Am I hit it in the water? Working on my mechanics right. No, it's really just committing to that one thought, which I like to talk about with my players now and try to stress that.
Love it. Adam, Andy, y'all have any questions for Jim?
Yeah, well, from me, like you said, was it your son that just was having fun? Like it was like kind of easy to him, but like over a couple of years later, the competition gets harder, maybe the pressure gets harder. Do you think he still keeps that same mentality, or is it something like what happens to players that puts all that pressure on them, or maybe too high of expectations, or they're not keeping up with their competition? Like what happens where it's not as easy mentally?
Great question. I mean, I just always draw from experiences, but I talk to my softball team, especially when they're struggling. I always stress, go back to the fundamentals, go back to what what to do. Don't try to do too much, because when you talk about the focus and all those other things that come into your mind, I call them sometimes ants, which is the negative thoughts that come into your mind, automatic negative thoughts. Am I going to get hit? Am I going to hit in the fairway? Am I going to let my team down? All those things. And you got to go back to something that you're comfortable with. And, it all comes with confidence as well. If you don't have confidence in anything you do, that people see that. I mean, the eye test, you see it all the time. We played a team from, Northern California the other day, first day, 4-hole hitter. I asked her after she hit 2 home runs off of us. I said, "When's your tryout with the Washington Football Club?" I mean, she was like 6'3", 220, But I asked my girls, I said, "Who was the most confident player on the other side?" They were like, "Oh, the girl that hit 2 home runs." Yeah, she just went in there and throw the ball over this plate and see what happens. That was her attitude, type of thing. But going back to your question, yeah, those things, you get in those situations where, am I going to win the game, or it's a big game and all? I used to always refer back to, it's just the game. I've said this many times. I said the stakes are higher, but the game's still the same. It's 90 feet and type of thing. I always remember our national championship game, 1986. We were playing Lewis and Clark, and guys remember Kevin Wickender. He's on the mound, and I was playing third, and I mean, the crowd's going crazy, and he struck out the first 2 hitters. You could still see in his eyes that he was still a little nervous, right? Even though he struck out the first 2 hitters, and we threw the ball around, and instead of throwing the ball to him, I walked the ball up to him, and my nickname was Ollie. He's like, "What's up, Ollie?" And I said, "I don't know about you, Wick, but I was turning on your in the fall, and these guys don't act like they know what's going on." And he stopped, he started laughing. He's like, "Let's go win us a championship." But in those situations, you try to find a little outlet to keep, as like I said, go back to the fundamentals, but it all comes down to the of the confidence. You have to have the confidence, and if you have a confident player in anything, you're going for a job interview, a confident player or whatever, people see that, and that's what they're attracted to. I don't know if I answered your question, Annie, or Adam. It's just there's so many, we could talk days and days on this stuff, and
You just got to keep, for me, you got to keep on cultivating that confidence, right? Like you got to keep on building it. You can't just say that's the way it is and I'm good.
Right.
It's only going to get harder when you go up. And if you expect it to always to be easy, just like it was the level behind you, I think that's where you get kind of passed up. Like if you don't keep on working on your confidence and keep celebrating those small wins.
Yeah,
Whether it's taking a nasty pitch from a nasty pitcher and still striking out, you still have to build confidence in the fact that you took one of his nasty pitches, and next time you're going to hit him. Because I think a lot of times they just kind of lose, they just lose the confidence.
Right.
And they think they still have it, and it's just kind of fabricated confidence.
Yeah.
When you got to make it real, and you got to find a way to, whether you want to trick your mind or whatever you want to call it, but you got to find a way to build that confidence and just hold on to it the best you can.
Well, just to add to that, you added that fake that confidence. You've played so many different players. I remember playing a specific player. I mean, the guy would strike out the first time when miss the ball by a foot, he'd come back to the dugout and be like, I'm right on that guy. It's like, what?
Well, I know you're not, but
Right, but no, but it was he was like that, and like,
yeah,
you know,
you
I
have
always
to.
kind of wish I had that, because like you said, you know, you can be
Yeah.
it's easy when you get 4 hits, right? I'm confident, but what happens? And that's what I stress a lot to the players, and even my son. You know, I honestly kind of like when he struggles a little bit, see how he reacts to that. That's the big
Yeah.
one for me, because I tell my girls that all want to be recruited, obviously, and their parents want them to go to UCLA and Oklahoma. It's like, you know, how do you act when you strike out a couple of times or you make a couple
Right.
errors? That's how I want to see how you act. Are you the one that puts their head down and you know, sulks about it, or hey, give me another ground ball, let me make another, you know what I'm saying, or accepting that? And I think teams should do more of that. I think they should practice making errors. I think they should practice striking out and see, you know, I mean, and I don't touch on that very much because of limited time, but you know, I'll be in practice and someone will make an error just in practice, and I'll be like, I'm giving you 7-8 seconds to get rid of it, you know,
Right, yeah.
get it type of thing. And
Love it.
but yeah, it's one of those things.
I always like the word responsibility,
Mm,
right? I think that's a big part of it, because the word obviously respond, how you respond to failure. And they say that what 90% or 10% is what happens to us, and 90% is how we respond to it.
wow,
And
yeah,
I think that's the biggest part of maintaining that confidence, holding on tight to
yeah,
your confidence, is how you respond to failure.
right.
You know what I was thinking too is that a lot of people
Adrian.
believe that their confidence comes from their experiences,
Mhm.
right? So it's like, oh, I failed, therefore my confidence is gone, or oh, I was successful, therefore now I can have confidence, right? And so what people tend to seem to forget is that confidence comes from the way that you're thinking, right?
Yeah,
Not
right.
from so much the experiences that you have. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, let's be honest though, right? Like when you're playing well, it's easier to have confidence,
Right.
but at the same time, like it's really the way that you're thinking. And so if you can, like, I like what you're saying, Jim, where if you can have that one thought, so almost when you're hitting, confidence, like in a way, I don't want to say that it doesn't matter, but all your attention should be on what you're trying to accomplish, like seeing the ball out of the pitcher's hand, right? And so confidence is almost like put on the back burner. All that matters is the focus. But then
Yes.
confidence comes back and helps you stay focused, really. So
Right. Good point. Excellent.
Love that. You know, I think I talk to kids all the time about finding positives out of negatives. And I think exactly what you're saying, Andy, is just redirecting that. Okay, did I see the ball well? Okay, let's be confident of that, you know. And one of the biggest things that always impressed me, I think I've told you guys, and Jim, I talk a lot about Joey Votto because he's a powerful guy, man, mentally. And he always would say, he goes, you know, when I'm scuffling, I love it. He goes, it's the funnest part of the year because I know I have to get back after it and get, you know, work, and I love to work. But he would always say it. He goes, I'm one thought or I'm one swing away from getting hot and getting back on track. And he goes,
Wow.
it's just a matter of time. And, you know, I wish we could get so many other kids to get to that point of mind, but you know, they panic so much and everything is so magnified that I think that self-imposed pressure it just keeps them sometimes from what, like Adam, you're talking about, how they keep growing and cultivating that. So it's tough.
Yeah.
I have a question for Jim. What type of thoughts, or is there a specific type of thought that you teach players to use? Like, so for example, if you're about to go hit, what type of or what thought would be like a really good, powerful, effective thought?
You know, that's a great question. And again, I always go back to, you know, your routine, effective routines, and everyone's different type of situation. On, you know, like I said, my daughter, I mean, we talk hitting all the time, and she gets in there, and sometimes it's like, I'm coaching third. It's like, oh my God, what are you thinking? Right. And she's honest with me. She's like, oh, I was thinking about don't swing at her height pitch and all this. But so going back to your question, you know, I think your routine starts for me and my past was way before I got in the box, but having the plan and, you know, I think just getting in there is, like you mentioned, focusing on the pitch. You know, my career really advanced when I was later in my career. I had an opportunity to refine my approach. And when I did and stuck with it, my career really took off. And, you know, it was unfortunately for me later in my career, but it was fun. But like I said, everyone's different. I think just getting in there and talking over that plan with your coach or your mentor, your hitting guy, or whoever you're working with, it's just, you know, what works for you. Cause I think everything's different. What I think is most important is to, you know, be calm in there and relaxed and talk about breathing, the situations. And we just tend to overthink. I'm in a process right now with my team. It's like every time we get a runner on third base, we either strike out or pop out. And I'm going, the infield's in. I remember loving those situations because I think I was more relaxed because my thought process was always, you know, the pitcher now has to come to me. I'm in total control. And that's what you want to be in as a hitter. You need to be in control, and how your mind affects that is the key. But, you know, talking to the girls, it's like, well, I wanted to get a base hit. Yeah, you swung at the pitch 2 feet outside, you know, I'm just saying, and we've all done it, but,
Sure.
You know, I just think it's a tough game. It's, you know, I talk to my daughter all the time about it's you versus a pitcher. Unfortunately for you, they got 8 other players behind her. It's helping her. You don't, but you can't control those. And we talk about uncontrollables, umpire, parents, teammates, coaches, everything, friends. I mean, get in the way. And I think you just have to start with a clear word in your mind, one thought, breathe. You know, we talk about visualization. I know you guys have talked about all those things, but, you know, I don't think we spend enough time on it. I think it's more talked about instead of practiced. And, you know, I love for kids to write down what they were going through and review that type of thing. I don't know, Adam, what was and Ronnie, what was your kind of mindsets when you got in the box? Did you have a mindset that you said to yourself? Did you kind of just, you know, how long did that take to be confident with that?
For
Go ahead,
me,
Adam.
yeah, thank you, Ronnie. For me personally, I was a big self-talk guy, or had like an analogy that I would think. You know, I talk a lot about the ring of fire. I would always put like this ring of fire out there that if the ball went to the ring of fire, it would ignite. My barrel would ignite and I would smash the ball. But if it would hit the ice around the ring of fire, it would deflect and I would not swing it. It wasn't even close to my strike zone. So like self-talk and like having that imagery, that visualization helped me. But we just had Chris Davis in town because he's coming back. He got released by the Rangers, and I was with the A's again. So he's kind of rehabbing with us right now. And I was talking to the team about this self-talk, and he spoke up and he's like, you know what? Self-talk didn't really work for me. What worked for him was more the breathing aspect, right? Breathing, how important that was for him, but then also resetting his mind by looking at something in the stadium. He said he would look at the flag, and he says that it would quiet his mind because in the stadium, it's a lot of loud noise. There's a lot of loud thoughts in your head. But he said if he could just focus on something, an object in the stadium, it would clear his mind. So you can see automatically there's 2 different perspectives there, right? Me self-talk and Chris Davis more just focusing on an object. So everybody's different. But for me personally, that self-talk and the imagery was extremely powerful.
Excellent.
Love it. You know, I think my biggest thing, I don't think I've told Adam, you or Andy this one, you know, my biggest, you know, it was one of those bittersweets, those double-edged swords. To this day, I'm emotional. And when I was going good, my emotions were right. But when I was struggling, my emotions just took over. And that was really hard for me because if I was struggling I mean, it was just, I had a hard time talking to myself about it. And I still, to this day, I struggle with that when I'm, if I'm feeling down and I'm like, oh, I'm not having much success, or I didn't help a kid, with the lesson, I get down on myself. And that was probably the biggest thing that I struggled with my whole career, man. Like we talked about it, when you're going good, heck, I'm on cloud 9, but when I struggled, I had a hard time getting back on track. And just, again, I just didn't know how to control my emotions. And it was more just that happy, sad, thing. And, oh, it drove me crazy, and kind of still does to this day, but I'm getting better at it. So.
Jim, do you think like this emotion that Ronnie talks about, and that I know I've experienced as a ball player, this emotion that just, it's tough to control. Do you think it's from being focused on results? Do you feel like you don't meet your expectation? You don't meet your result because what you're telling yourself, or what you expect from yourself is a result. Do you think that's why the emotion comes out more, or not really?
Oh, I would totally agree with that. I think, in this sport, it's results driven, and you work so hard. And then when you don't see the success that you want to, it can play with your mind so heavy, and I think, right now I'm trying to get my girls really just to hit the ball hard. I don't, a quality of bat or whatever you want to call it, they focus so much on their batting average and all that. It's like, I tell my daughter, I wish you'd hit the ball hard 4 times and they line out, and then I would just the happiest day for you. That's all you can do, type of thing. But yeah, I think it's really your emotions is results driven in this game, unfortunately. And because you work so hard, you've done it. We've all done it, whatever we've done. And I know just this group here, hard work was not ever an issue. So that's the hard part, I guess. It's, you outwork other people and they have more success, or you think they do have more success. But then it comes back to that mind, the emotions, and how do you handle that? That's the hardest part, I mean,
It is.
And then I could see that in Ronnie, you don't think of that. Or I played with him for a summer and played against him. And then we were teammates for a short time in the Angels organization. You never saw that from him, but, this is great to talk about because it happens, It happened to me. Jeez, I was hitting 150 May 1st with the Angels, and I'm going to get released. I should have been released hitting 150, but it was one of those things where Joe Madden came to town and told me to meet him for dinner. I'm like, called my dad, I'm getting released. But it was,
oh man,
it was one of those things where, just someone to talk about it and refine my approach. And I mean, that's when my career really changed after that. But I can honestly say that season, I think it was, Andy, you weren't even born yet, 1989, but
I was born.
I know it. That was a joke. But it's you talk it out and you stick with it. And that year I ended up having one of my best seasons ever, second half of the season. And at the end of the year, I talked to some of the Angel executives, and it's like, one thing, I didn't change my mechanics the whole year, hitting 150, playing every day. You're sitting there going, but I didn't change my mechanics, and it just stuck with the process. And I just knew the process was, I worked hard at this. I've done this my life. This is what I want to do. And it changed my mental side. And then when that clicked, watch out. And I continued for the rest of my career. I was like a different player hitting wise after that. But that was just, again, coming back. That's why I guess I'm so passionate about the mental. It can be your best friend, or it can, like Ronnie's talking about, it can really hurt you as well. How do you stay on that even keel type of situation, I guess?
Love it. Well, fellas, we are way past our time frame here. Jim, this has been awesome, man. We really appreciate it. Can we've got your email. Is there another way that we can maybe promote you through what we're doing to get people to contact you and figure out a way to so you can help some kids as well? Is there
Absolutely. I mean, this has been, I've watch you guys and listen, and can't wait till the day we can all meet up, personally. But yeah, absolutely. I'd love to continue being a part of this and learning from you guys. And it's, kids out there today, or who's ever listening, parents, or what, you can grab something from this, a little bit or a lot, and move forward with it. But you guys are great. I'm very honored to be a part of this. Thank you.
Well,
Well,
appreciate
thanks
it.
for being on, Jim. We appreciate it.
All
Definitely
right,
learned a
guys.
lot from you as well.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Well,
guys.
y'all take care, and we'll see y'all next time. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Andy.
All right.
Thanks, Adam.